Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're tuning in. This is our week 10 wrap up of Tailgate Trash Talk brought to you by Backyard Sports. It is our first post CFP rankings episode as well. So we'll have a little bit to talk about. Our top 25 isn't your traditional top 25 that we've been going off. ESPN typically does AP, and full disclosure, that's where I grab the matchups and the numbers from. So we are now going off of the CFP top 25, and there's some interesting developments in the CFP top 25 that I do want to talk to you about, Bentley. But first, how are you doing, buddy?
Well, Gary, it's not often that you get to beat a top 10 team in the country, It just it's exciting. I'll put it that way. It's exciting. It's some people have called it program defining for South Carolina. Um, I'm gonna be reserved about it. I'm gonna act like I've been here before because I have.
You have.
I've been here before. I've been here before.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. So I do want to talk about CFP top 25 because Tuesday night, last night, we had our first CFP ranking show. And there's a little bit of buzz around the conference that's near and dear to your heart, the SEC. One, are, how do you feel about the fact that coming off a top 10 win and the nature of the losses for South Carolina for the most part, that you're not in the CFP top 25? The platform is yours. Let me know.
I understand it. I get it. We did. I mean, a loss is a loss, right? I've come on this very show and lamented the losses that Carolina had. The 1 point loss or 2 point loss, whatever it was, the one score loss to on the road at Alabama, and then the game that was stolen from us against LSU at home. We did get blown out by Ole Miss, but as we saw this past weekend, that's just a thing that happens. Ole Miss blows out teams without Trey Harris, which I thought was a little kind of a good sign for them, if you will.
It is.
So I understood why Carolina did not make the top 25. I get it. What was a little more surprising to me was they bumped Vandy out of the top 25 after a road win against an SEC opponent. Like, you were ranked the week before, you win a game on the road, and then you get bumped out. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Pair that with the fact that they left Texas in the top 5, who Vanderbilt was in a one-score game with, and then they beat Alabama. The Vandy thing made less sense to me than did leaving South Carolina out. Also, you and I have talked about this this is our second year now, I guess, doing the show. We talk about it every week when we get to the college football ranking portion of the season. The college football ranking committee often does not value the teams that are undefeated, right? I don't understand why on your very first ranking show you would not put the undefeated teams as the highest ranked teams in the country, right? Army being 25th is a little shocking to me. They're 8-0. Like, why? That's crazy. Bump them up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Indiana, who has done nothing but blow teams out, their closest margin of victory was 14 points this year. Why would they not be a top 5 team? I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. And I know, like, in the past, we've heard from CFP members, CFP committee members about, like, they try to be unbiased. They try to, like, take the records off the board. It's about quality wins. It's about control of, that control metric. And like the eyeball test. And I'm all for the eyeball test. I'm an avid advocate of the eyeball test. And I preach that to people when I'm talking about, like, player versus player, team versus team, that sort of thing. However, if Army scoring nearly 50 points a game and beating the brakes off of every team leading up to this week against Air Force, where you're playing a big time rivalry game in unfavorable conditions, it was, if that's not an eyeball test pass, I don't know what is for a school like that. And then you talk about Vandy, right? Like you beat Bama, you almost beat Texas, you just beat Auburn as a ranked team on the road. I don't know what the eyeball test. And then Indiana, you mentioned it. They've beaten the brakes off of everybody that's been put in front of them, and they're in a major conference. The Power Five conferences matter when it comes to those metrics of strength of schedule and strength of opponent, strength of win versus strength of loss, that sort of thing. I just don't get it. How you don't look at that and say Army's probably a top 15 team. I think if you're talking CFP ranking, Army should probably be top 15. Indiana should be probably top 8, maybe. If not somewhere up near, maybe you put them in the top 5 and say like if they win the conference, they'll host a game. And now I'm not saying like I think Indiana's the 5th best team in the country. But for these initial CFP rankings, they're supposed to let us know as the public and as the teams competing for a spot in the playoff, they're supposed to let us know what they think of these teams and what they value when it comes to ranking these teams. And I'm going to be honest with you, several times in years past when it's been a 4-team playoff, I feel like I had a better grasp in the early rankings than I do this year. And we've got a 12-team playoff where they had a lot more freedom to really just say, these are the teams we think are playoff teams in week 10, right? That's what I thought we were going to get, and we didn't. And I feel like they had like an agenda with specific maybe criteria, whatever it was. And I think that's what we run into with Vandy and SC and Army barely being in the top 25. It's like, I don't know what they're looking for with certain teams to be able to say you belong in. And there's a couple of teams in the rankings in the top 25 that I'm like, I don't know how we got to this point where, we're valuing. I don't know what we're valuing. That's my biggest complaint is I just don't know what the CFP is valuing. And I think it's going to be harder and harder to have this conversation as we get closer to when we've got to narrow this down to 12 teams.
So if it were me and I was on the committee right now, and I guess this really only applies to the 4-team committee or the 4-team format, right? But if you ask me my top 4 right now, regardless of conference alignment, whatever, because we understand the top 4 seeds have to be the conference champions, but like again, just for the strict purpose of ranking the top 25 as the playoff committee, I would tell you it's Oregon, it's Indiana, it's probably BYU, and then Miami. You could flip-flop Miami, BYU if you feel more strongly about one or the other. But it makes no sense that, like, I'm just looking at the list, like Notre Dame, who lost to NIU at home, is ranked above Boise State, who was a 1-score game against Oregon on the road. Like, I don't. Now, keep in mind, I think we probably should caveat this. This 25 list that they made right here doesn't matter because we're only going to pull 12 out of it, and that'll be the Sunday after conference championship weekend. But it like, again, I said earlier, I don't understand why, for the simple fact that this ranking doesn't matter, why would you not just put the undefeated teams at the top? Like, that's crazy to me. I don't understand it, especially teams that have looked as good as they have. Like, Cam Ward is now the betting favorite to win the Heisman because that offense in Miami is completely unstoppable. I agree those standings are impossible to figure out. And I understand why they do this show, right? They make it a big deal. They put it on TV. There's a whole reveal, whatever, because it drives ratings. It gets guys like you and me talking about it behind microphones. But truthfully, like, there is no transparency. Like your dad pointed out, nobody knows how they make these ratings these rankings. They can come out and say, this is what we value, game control, quality, and whatever. But there's no definitive list. So if that's going to be the case, why even do this? Why just let us have the AP Top 25, let us have the Coaches Bowl, and then that Sunday after the conference championship weekend, give us the bracket.
Tell us what 12 are playing for a national championship.
Exactly. Like, but this drives engagement, so I understand it. There's money behind it. I totally, it's similar to the 12-team playoff. I get it. It's fun. It drives the conversation. But like, as much as we can bitch about Indiana not being a top 4 ranked team in this thing, it doesn't matter because Indiana's going to play Ohio State. Georgia and Ole Miss play this weekend. Alabama and LSU play this weekend. These are games that are basically eliminator games because if Indiana loses to Ohio State, they don't make it to the Big 12 or to the Big 10 championship game, and they probably don't make the playoff as a one-loss team. Like, just being honest, they probably don't.
Yeah. No, and it is interesting to think about that, right? In terms of what this does and how much is the committee thinking like, hey, if we kind of mess with the granddaddy of conferences with the SEC, and you get a team like Vanderbilt that was in the AP top 25 last week and won on the road against a SEC opponent, and then we knock them out of the top 25, how much is that going to get people talking? How much buzz are we going to get about the CFP rankings? So there's always an agenda with it, and I think you nailed it, right? Like these early rankings. I'm with you. I think, for me, you kind of got to look at like standings, right, of the conferences right now. And I understand by the eyeball and I also do understand that like the CFP committee rules state that like the ranking doesn't matter when it comes to the seeding. The highest ranked non-conference champion is going to be number 5. The top 4 ranked conference champions are going to be 1 through 4, and then the 5th highest is going to get in wherever they slate when it comes out with rankings wise. They could be ranked, they could be unranked, and they'll be the 12th seed, right? Like that's the truth behind it. And it's never like, that's not a real possibility, but it is a possibility. And I get all that, but like, tell me who I should be looking at and paying attention to and who meets your metrics. You're not going to tell me that Texas, who struggled with Vandy and has a bad loss against Georgia, should be ranked above Indiana right now. You're just not going to tell me that. Maybe you don't put them in the top 4 if you truly believe that Ohio State is head and shoulders better than them as an undefeated team versus a one-loss Ohio State team. That's a top 5 team, in my opinion, based on what I think is valued in the CFP metrics and criteria. I'm with you on BYU as well, right? Because that's an undefeated Power 5, Power 4, I guess now, but conference leader right now. I just don't see like BYU sitting behind who they're behind Tennessee, they're behind Penn State, Tech. Like, I don't get it. It's fun though. It's fun to talk about, right? So they got what they wanted. We're talking about it.
Also, so I this is kind of a nitpicky thing, and shout out to our boy BK. Missouri is a 2-loss team who is an underdog this weekend because they don't have a quarterback.
Right.
Texas Tech just beat undefeated Iowa State last weekend, and they have a stud quarterback. Why are they not in the top 25? Where last year, Florida State, who was undefeated, specifically did not make the playoff because they lost their quarterback. I don't. Where does that make sense? What are we doing?
I don't know. Missouri's just gonna beat 34-0 at home.
Yes. To a team who lost to Vanderbilt.
Right.
It was not
and
ranked.
a team that sits Bama's 12-11 right now.
11
in the ranking. There's got to be a value there, right? There's got to be. It's just incongruent. It feels more like they threw darts at a wall this year than in years past with these rankings. In years past, I could see like what they were doing to stir up controversy because I know they want to get people talking, right? I could see what criteria they were using to pitch one team over the other. I can't tell you what that is this year.
No idea. Not yet, at least.
Not yet. We may get
the very first one. It's the very first one of the first year of the 12-team playoff.
12-team, yeah.
And maybe it is. So this is just like, this is a culminating thing, right? We've talked all year long about how there is more parity in the sport this year. The NIL transfer portal, they've caused tectonic amounts of shift within the sport. The spreading out of the talent, or the flattening of the talent, if you will. I don't know if that's a sustainable thing yet. Because I kind of tend to lean that the big dogs are going to figure it out.
They're going to figure it out.
Yeah, like and this might just be an outlier year where we had Kurt Cignetti, who turns out to be an amazing coach, jump to a school, brought a bunch of guys with him, right? You have Ashton Jetty, who's having an otherworldly season.
He might be close to State next year.
Yeah, well, he's going to be in the NFL next year.
On from James Franklin.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is an outlier year. I'm saying there is the potential for this to be an outlier year. Yeah. And next year on this same week, when we come back in the first 12-team playoff, you get fucking Georgia, Bama, Texas, Ohio State, Ole Miss. Like, you get your usual suspects sitting at the top of the rankings, and we're like, oh man, you remember last year when Indiana was 7-0 going into a game at home where they're 14-point favorites over Michigan? Do you remember that? That's crazy because Cignetti is now coaching at Penn State. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's I just always default to the guys who know how to do this are going to get it done.
Yep.
And if you give the haves, like you call them, enough time, they're going to figure out how to get the edge on the guys that are have-nots.
Agreed. Oh, well, interesting, right? Interesting conversation about the CFP playoff, the initial rankings, and they got what they wanted, right? Anyway, onward and upward. Let's talk about week 10. We had a little bit of a rough week. You had a little better week than I did. We're going to need a bounce back week in week 11. But we come out the gate strong. Some Mountain West early week action, weekday action. Boise ends up covering. Ashton Jeanty bounces back from his subpar performance against UNLV, where they did their job and people complained about it. Yeah, I mean, he had 115 yards and
something
a touchdown or something, 165 and a touchdown, whatever it was. And it just wasn't an Ashton Jeanty supernova night. He had a much more similar night to that against a San Diego State team that clearly just does not have the horses to keep up with Boise State. Are you closer and closer to thinking Boise State's going to be a playoff team?
Yeah, I said it. I said the winner of the UNLV Boise State game was going to make the playoff. I'm sticking with it. The winner of that game was going to be the highest rated non-power forward champion.
I like it. I want Ashton Jeanty in the playoff. I don't care that it's been cheapened by hosting a game, whatever. I want Ashton Jeanty in the playoff. I want those. If we're going to 12 teams, that's why I care about it being 12 teams. I want those kinds of players in a playoff game, whether or not we're getting the same value on these bowl games. That's the kind of player I want in a playoff game.
Yep, 100%.
Ohio State, Penn State. I thought this was going to come down to a field goal. It was a one-score game, just not close enough for me to cover with the 3.5. James Franklin continues to be James Franklin. And I did not think Penn State was going to win the game. I thought they were going to lose by a field goal. I thought it was going to come down to a kick one way or the other. But, man, it is just something that, like, James Franklin gets in these games, and I don't know if he throws up in the locker room before the game during his pregame speech or what. His teams just come out and they coach scared. They sort of play scared, especially on the offensive side. I thought the defense played pretty well, with the exception of how they closed the first half. That's kind of where the game got away from them. But it's something, man, and it is just like the kryptonite of the fighting Franklins to play a top 5 fucking team. We did document it last week that Ryan Day also has struggles against top 5 teams. So it was a battle of attrition for these two coaches. But Ohio State's got more horses. Ohio State's got Chip Kelly. And I thought Chip Kelly did a masterful job of play calling in situations where the momentum shifted and they took advantage of it. I'm still worried about Will Howard, but I do think that I'm closer to agreeing with you that I think they have enough talent around him that his limitations won't hurt them as they go forward. Talk to me, though. Talk to me about what you came out of this game with. Penn State's probably still going to sneak into a playoff because they're better than the rest of the Big Ten. They just can't beat the top 5 teams. And they're lucky they don't play Oregon this year. They'd have 2 losses.
So this game was supposed to be 21-3 at halftime. The pick six, credit to Penn State, great defense, got it. You talked about trusting Will Howard and that Chip Kelly play calling. They kind of settled down a little bit, and then boom, Will Howard fumbles the ball out of the end zone. But I mean, you take those 2 plays away. It's minimum 14-3, right? And then the second half happened, and Ohio State went into the locker room and said, "Hey, boys, they gave the Remember the Titans speech. They gained a yard, you run a mile. You drop a ball, you run a mile. I will break my foot off in your John Brown behind. Obviously, it's just a better team, man. That's what it is, plain and simple. They're the better team. The offensive play calling, I was very underwhelmed by from Penn State. They brought over the guy his last name's hyphenated, and I'm bad with names as it is, so I'm not even going to try to pretend like I know it. But he was the offensive coordinator at Kansas. We talked about him last week because we mentioned Bo Pribula maybe having to play in this game. Excuse me, I had Chipotle for dinner now. I'm burping. But their offensive play calling was awful. They got their best player of the ball one time in the first half, Tyler Warren, and then they get the ball down in the red area in the second half, and they run the ball 3 times and then decide to pass the ball on the 4th down and don't convert. And it's like, hey man, you have one playmaker on your team. If you're gonna commit to run the ball 3 times in a row, maybe snap him the ball.
Right.
He can't be tackled. Tyler Warren is untackleable.
Right.
Just get the ball in his hand. I don't care how you do it. But I know we like to shit on James Franklin in this show, and I get it. I enjoy it as much as the next guy. I don't know how I go back and forth, right? I don't know if this is a roster construction issue with him or if this was like a bad coaching job by him. Because I didn't think, at least defensively, I thought that Penn State played okay. Like they didn't play badly enough on the defensive side of the ball. Hell, they were up 10-0 in the first quarter at home. Like that's a game you probably should win, right? That being said, I just talked about how Tyler Warren is literally the only explosive player they have on that offense. How in the fuck is that possible? You have a myriad of NFL players that come out of Penn State, and since James Franklin has been there, probably one of the top 10 most drafted schools.
6 fucking first and second day wide receivers, I believe, since his time was there. Like,
where are they? They don't have them. I don't understand. You bring in Drew Aller, who is supposed to be your highest rated quarterback recruit ever, and then you get him absolutely no one to throw the ball to.
Right.
I don't have a definitive answer of whether I think it was a bad coaching job or whether it's just awful roster construction. It's one of those two things that's happening in Penn State, and neither of them are good.
No.
But that Ohio State's just a far superior team than Penn State is at this moment.
Yep. Yeah, I thought the defense, and I thought they were going to be able to run the ball a little bit, and I thought they were going to be able to keep this thing close. Had a lead, and then it got away, and like you said, it could have easily been 2, maybe 3 scores at the end of this game. For them to lose by 1 score was kind of a fortuitous bounce, if you will. That fumble through the end zone really changed things. Mm-hmm. Ohio State had seized all the momentum before halftime, and that fumble changed that, but Penn State never got anything going in the second half. Like you said, Ohio State's defense just went full fucking bag over the head suffocate mode in the second half.
It started right before halftime with that interception by Ignomina or whatever his name is. That incredible pick.
Igbinosa?
Igbinosa. Yeah. Yep.
I always mix him up with the Igbenogany, who is in the NFL right now, but similar name. Duke, Miami, and this looked like Duke was like gonna really give them the business for a while. Duke had a lead late
at halftime,
relatively late in this game. Right, you come out of the half with the lead, and then Miami and Cam Ward kind of kicked it in gear. We talked a lot about
after halftime. Sorry.
Yeah, they were about halfway through the third, I think, is when Miami really kicked it into gear. And when I say kicked it into gear, like they went fucking bananas.
Yeah.
And ended up covering a 3 touchdown plus the hook number by the hook, somehow by 22. It was a very, very odd score to cover the way the game kind of played out, field goals, etc. Like it just got weird. But Miami fucking exploded for the last about 22 minutes of this game. And I remember texting you like, where the fuck did that come from? Because I thought for damn sure this was a loss for me and Duke was going to cover the 21.5. But man, Cam Ward and when they get that offense going, holy shit. But they can't keep doing this come playoff time, right? Like when they're playing better teams, you can't get behind or hang out behind and play shit for a half and then think you're just going to turn it on, right?
Maybe.
Maybe. As good as it looks when they do turn it on.
Maybe. I don't know. You got Cam Ward playing quarterback, dude.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want. Except win me money. Because
yeah.
I mean, I won a lot of money on them early in the year, so I don't feel bad about it. But
sure.
Miami had no business covering 21.5 in this game.
Nope.
A lost fumble and a pick by Malik Murphy in the second half. Just
I chalked it up as a loss at halftime. I chalked it up as a loss. They came back somehow. Dude, when they get going though, Cam Ward and that offense, it's special. When they are going right, it's special. When they're not though, it's a fucking slog to watch. Like, man, they seem like they're just so slow. When it's not going, the game is just kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, but it's not often that they're not going.
Yeah. Yeah, they spot you a few, and then they're coming back. Ole Miss, Arkansas, you mentioned it. Ole Miss just blows teams out. Arkansas, this thing was over. Like, the cover play happened about 8 minutes into this game. It was over quick, and boy, oh boy, I knew this was over when I look up in this. I think it was like 31-7 or something at one point. It was just a silly score. I can't remember exactly what it was when I looked, but it was over early. Ole Miss hung a big number on a scrappy Arkansas team that we've talked about being kind of building an identity. They just never stood a chance, and they didn't have Trey Harris.
Yeah, that's the most shocking thing to me. They won a game on the road without their best receiver. I'm gonna look it up here real quickly. Juice Wells season update for everyone. Antoine Wells, 4 catches, 469 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I hope you guys are enjoying that. They're down in the SIP. Don't need you, bud. Have fun down there with Lane Kiffin. But yeah, to go into Fayetteville and blow out an Arkansas team that I thought had a little bit of juice on offense. We see them put up some decent numbers, on sporadic weeks throughout the year. But Ole Miss, I think they might understand the assignment. They might realize they got to put on some shows if they want to make this playoff because they have 2 losses already, and they play Georgia this weekend. They kind of understand. I do feel a little bad for them, though. I don't know if you caught the press conference that Lane Kiffin had before the week where he found out that LSU was playing the night game this weekend instead of them. And he was like, oh, yeah, like, who's playing the night game? LSU, shocker. All right, Lane, I feel bad that you're not getting home games. I got it. Your stadium seats 60,000 people.
Yeah.
Death Valley seats 93,000 people, and it is going to be full Saturday night.
It's like good TV.
Yes, you're selling a product, and as great as Oxford is, it's not Baton Rouge.
No, it's not Baton Rouge. It ain't Baton Rouge with them crazies.
No. I do feel bad for them, though. They should get at least one. I think every school should get a conference game at night at home.
That's fair.
I don't know if that's possible with like the numbers or whatever, but that should happen.
I would think it has to be, right? Like, you got to figure that out. I don't know. You want to be on TV too, but
yep.
Army, Air Force, as I mentioned previously when we were talking about the CFP game, Air Force kept this thing close. Air Force had a lead. I believe about halfway through the second quarter, Air Force had a lead. Army kind of turned it on, ended up winning by, I believe, 10 in this game. Air Force is going to dirty it up. They play that triple option as well. They play the same style of offense. And in Army, it was a little sloppy early, some kind of bonehead mistakes, a couple penalties. I know they had two first downs overturned by penalties, and then that resulted in punts. But look, they took care of business. It's a win in a game that, anything can really happen in these commander-in-chief games because you're playing a team you're really, really familiar with. No matter what these schools have done in terms of changing conferences, I know Air Force was kind of the first to really go to a conference, but they've always played these games for the Commander-in-Chief Cup. Are you a believer in Army still after this kind of sputtering performance? They've got Notre Dame on the schedule, and they're going to have to beat Notre Dame, I think. I don't know if you feel the same way. I think they're going to have to beat Notre Dame, and a team from the American is going to absolutely have to go undefeated to make a playoff spot. I think Boise State has the luxury of being in the Mountain West, and their loss being to Oregon, who's the number one team in the country. An American Athletic Conference team has to go undefeated. Do you still believe in Army going forward?
I mean, like,
or are they just kind of a fun story?
I think they're more of a, if I'm being realistic, I think they're a fun story. I have a couple of takeaways from this game, but to answer your question, I think they're more of a fun story than a real playoff contender, which is unfortunate because, like, it'd be cool. Yeah. They wore those sick black helmets with, like, the Jolly Roger on them this weekend. Those were incredible.
Yep.
They had great kits at Army.
Sneaky good kits at the fucking academy schools, too.
Yeah, which is shocking because we have some of the ugliest uniforms in the world. The Army does. Like, dear God.
They're tough. They're tough.
But so just, this is one of those, like, I'm stealing this bit, but it was like the Josh Rosen stat line when he was in the NFL. It'd be like 9 for 22 for 77 yards or whatever, right? So Air Force had the ball for 31 minutes compared to Army's 28 minutes. Air Force turned the ball over 3 times. Army did not turn the ball over once. Army's leading passer was 5 for 8 for 48 yards. Air Force's leading passer, 7 for 14, 54 yards and a pick. Their leading receiver had 52 receiving yards. So he had 2 passing yards. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. He had what is that? 7 total completions for Quentin Haynes. 5 of them went to one guy. 2 of them went to other receivers and only amassed 2 yards.
2 yards.
Like, I mean, this was like the anomaly of anomalies of games that we get. And then you lose the time of possession, win the turnover battle by 3, and only win by 17. Like, you said it, the Commander-in-Chief games just don't make any sense, man. They're just weird. I do think the Army will be live against Notre Dame, though, because their defense is significantly better than Navy's.
Yeah, I agree with that. Entirely. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one to watch. They got to get by North Texas this weekend on the road. But yeah, I think the defense is enough to maybe make them a sneaky dog against Notre Dame. I don't think it's going to be a 20-point Vegas line like it was against Navy.
No.
All right. Minnesota, Illinois, and I guess Vegas knew more than we did. I know Vegas doesn't build casinos by making bad lines, but this felt like a very weird line. I know Minnesota has the ability to kind of like drag you down into their space, but like Illinois plays that way. And I thought Illinois was better at that game than Minnesota, and at home being a 3-point dog. But Minnesota took care of business, man. And it wasn't really like, I think 8 points was the spread, the difference at the end of the game. And it might have been a game that you think like it probably should have been 2 scores, right? I just think Minnesota really surprisingly outclassed them this weekend.
Yeah, the difference in the game was a first quarter fumble by Illinois, turned into 3 points for Minnesota. Illinois missed a field goal in the first half, and then they fumbled the ball at the end of a 10-play drive late in the fourth quarter, driving to score. I mean, that's just you nailed it, man. They drag you down into the mud. Both of these teams do, and I thought that Luke Altmaier would be enough to make a play. Like I've said all year long, Illinois, they drag you down. They asked Luke Altmaier to make a play, and he couldn't do it this week. So credit to Minnesota for going in and handling their business in Champaign.
Yep, for sure. Oregon, Michigan, kind of ho-hum here. Is Sherrod Moore going to be a one-and-done head coach?
No.
You don't think so?
No. I did get a little bit of inside intel today from within the Michigan program.
Okay. Love it.
Under the previous regime.
Did you run into Connor Stallions?
I did not. I wish I did. No. This is like third hand. I was speaking to someone who spoke to somebody whose son is on the Michigan team
Oh,
and
nice.
was there under Harbaugh, was recruited by Sharon Moore. But so under Harbaugh on Fridays, the teams could invite their parents to practice. The parents would be on the field. They all break it down to the 50-yard line. It was a very fun and enjoyable, like lighthearted atmosphere. And Sharon Moore doesn't do any of that. Parents don't go to practice. They're closed practices. It's you practice, you're back in the locker room type deal. It's a very different vibe. And I posed the question to this guy who's a big Michigan fan, right? And I was like, do you think that a lot of the outside there, because there was so much outside noise to Sharon Moore coming in, like, does that have to do with it? Or do you think it's because he's trying to get the train back on the tracks? And I don't know the answer, but I'll ask you that question.
Quarterback.
Well, yeah. The Michigan thing is so strange to me. Obviously at the surface level, they don't have a quarterback. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But it's still Michigan. Like,
right.
They haven't been given the actual death penalty. Their previous coach just can't coach in the NCAA. Yeah. Like, there have been no real bans imposed upon the university.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of a ho-hum game.
Do you think that knowing he was likely heading to the NFL, do you think Jim might have left the cupboard a little bare and didn't do his diligence at the most important position on the field? Or do you think that, like, it's just, it's one of those years Michigan wasn't able to bring in a guy. They thought maybe Orji could be the guy, but
yeah.
I mean, Orji was a highly regarded high school player, but
sure,
he's a lot like a DJ who, like, he was just the best athlete on the field, and it doesn't translate to the college game.
Yeah, I tend to lean that direction. I think that if Harbaugh were still there, and I said this to my Michigan friend, I was like, Harbaugh, if you go back through his college career and remove Andrew Luck from the situation, he's not a quarterback guy.
That's true.
He runs the ball wherever he goes, and that's currently happening in the NFL.
Yep.
Like, I get that they're kind of letting Justin Herbert do his thing a little bit more these days. I think probably more out of necessity than anything in LA. But if you look over his entire coaching career, they have been running teams wherever he's been. So I fully believe that if Harbaugh was still coaching at Michigan, they would be playing Alex Orji and they'd be running like the Tim Tebow offense at Florida. Like, that's just what they would do. He would convince himself that he could coach up his 5 new starting offensive linemen and go out there with the 2-headed running back that they have and run basically a triple option offense with Alex Orji at the helm. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to make this work because I'm Jim Harbaugh. But Sharon Moore is not Jim Harbaugh, as good as he might be, and we don't really know yet whether he's going to be a super successful college coach or not. But as good as he might be, he's not Jim Harbaugh. So did he leave the cupboard bare? Probably no more bare than it was going to be if he had stayed at Michigan going forward.
That's a fair take. I think they would have made it work a little better, maybe. I also looked. I had to look because I thought that they had already had a fairly high-level quarterback recruit commit. They actually have a 5-star they're trying to flip right now from LSU as well, but they do have a 4-star from Charlotte. 6 foot, 202, a little bit of a dual threat guy. 5th ranked in the state, 9th in his position. So not necessarily like the best of the best, but if you're top 10 at that position, you're fine. But it looks like they're trying to replace at the position. And then, of course, you've got the transfer portal, right?
It would be a real shame if one of the recently top 10 defeating Carolina schools came and call in for a dual threat quarterback. It would be a real shame.
For sure.
You'd hate to see that. Yes, the center.
Victor
Wembanyama.
Most important by far.
I mean, he's not really wrong.
No.
It's the most important position on the offensive line.
For sure. And they don't get enough love.
They touch the ball on every single play.
Yep. Even if you have an indirect snap to the running back, the center still touches the ball.
Yep.
Oh, Onward, Georgia, Florida. We both thought Georgia would pull away. Carson Beck looked like hammered dog shit in this game. Carson Beck looked like the Carson Beck that we've been warning people would be Carson Beck this year. Much more about Georgia, or do you think Florida's starting to kind of turn the corner and we're going to see them rally a little bit going into next season with Billy Napier?
I think I saw DJ Lagway blow out his hamstring and then a transfer from Yale come in who I thought was Graham Mertz.
Yeah.
I sent you that text. I was at the wedding reception standing at the bar and I was like, oh, that was a pretty good pass. Fire off the text. Yo, was Graham Mertz good? And then I looked back up and I was like, that's not Graham Mertz.
That's a smart kid from the Northeast.
Carson Beck sucks.
Yes.
I love, and one of my favorite traditions every weekend is watching him throw 3 picks, going on Twitter and seeing all the Sid from Ice Age memes about how Carson Beck is just ugly and his eyes are too far apart. I don't like, I think this game goes very differently if DJ Lagway, who is an absolute stud, does not, I say blow out his hamstring. He hurt his hamstring. I don't know the full designation of the injury, but it did not look good. They had to cut him off. It was kind of an ugly sight.
Yeah.
But like you and I talked, especially there was a lot of momentum that was coming into the season for Billy Napier to have an awful season. They get crushed by Miami week 1 at home. The fire Billy Napier train is full steam ahead. Florida is not like awful. They're playing
the schedule, dude.
Yeah, like I mean they like have guys. They play hard as shit for him. Yep. I don't know if he's like top fledged SEC type coach, but he's not a bad coach. Right. Like we saw what he did at Louisiana Monroe.
Right.
I mean,
beat Auburn.
Or was he at Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns? Or is it one of those two? He was at a Louisiana school. Yeah. I mean, like, are you still on board with the fire Billy Napier train, or do you think you let him stick around?
I think we've come this far this year. We let him stick around. I was on the fire Napier train earlier this year, but I think I've jumped off. I think I'm fine with kind of feeling out where things go. I also agree with you. You were the first one to kind of bring up this point. DJ Lagway looks like a real deal college quarterback. I don't know, next level, whatever, right?
Sure.
If he develops between now and then. He looks like a legitimate, like you've said it about guys like Diego Pavia and those types of players that are just meant for the college game. DJ Lagway feels like that. And if I think that he wants to stay with Billy Napier, I'm absolutely on board with that. But also, like you said, like the players respond. They seem to play for him. And I could probably, if I'm the AD, find a way to justify and talk to the boosters of like, look at our fucking schedule this year. Give us a chance next year because it's got to come back to the median, right? Like, we can't have that schedule every year with the size of the SEC and the way the schedule is made up. We can't have that every year. So I think I'm tempered on the fire Napier chat. I think I'm of the feeling that like let's see if DJ Lagway with a year under his belt coming back next year, what this recruiting class can do. And a couple of their playmakers, we were talking about it beforehand about like our college football dynasty. Like there's a couple of these big time playmakers on this team that are underclassmen that are going to be coming back. So they could be dangerous next year.
Now, I will say their next 4 games are at Texas, home LSU, home Ole Miss, and then at Florida State. So it doesn't get any easier.
We're going to have to stomach the rest of the season.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to DJ.
Yeah. I agree.
If they're able to retain him in-house, I think you probably stick with Napier and hope that the schedule is just not as awful. Maybe don't schedule Miami opening weekend at maybe schedule Florida State at the first week.
Right.
Miami at the end.
Might have had some momentum to start the year.
Yeah.
Texas Tech, Iowa State, you were on the right side of this. You called exactly how it was going to go. Guns up, baby. They end up winning too.
Yeah.
Outright. Big dog, got some juice if you played the money line on Texas Tech. But you mentioned it when we opened the show talking about the CFP playoff. Like, they've got a legitimate stud under center. And I know, like, they've got the pedigree of a guy like Patrick Mahomes who's in the NFL right now. But they've got some real potential at that position. They might make some noise, not this year, but they make some noise in the Big 12. It might be a player.
They certainly could be. Yeah, I was very high on them coming into this week. I saw what they had done against TCU. What they've really been doing all year long. They're able to score points on pretty much anyone that's playing defense across from them. It's just a matter of whether their defense can stop the opposing offense, right? I like Iowa State, but they're not an explosive team.
Yeah.
They're a methodical and then hope they hit a home run in the run game. And that is a recipe for upsets, right? If you're not able to hit those home run plays, if that defense, it's like you mentioned, our online dynasty, guys running prevent defense with, I got the ball with 2 minutes, like I can't go down the field, right? So if you're not able to hit those home runs in the run game and you vice versa are going against an offense that is able to, I don't know why I said vice versa, that doesn't make any sense, but if you conversely are going against an offense who's able to have explosive plays within the scheme that they run, there is opportunity for upset there. Now, did I think Texas Tech was going to win? No. Full disclosure, I didn't. But I knew that this was going to be a relatively close game just because of the contrasting styles of offense that these two teams play.
Yeah, for sure. And Iowa State's a team that you never really build a team to come from behind because you don't want to be behind, but they're a team that is built to kind of be a front runner. They want to run the ball, they want to control the pace, and that wasn't what they had this weekend.
Yep.
Indiana, Michigan State, and I'll tell you, the Michigan State faithful must have been feeling real good when they had a 10-0 lead. Guns up. Must have been feeling real good when they had a 10-0 lead in this game. And then the Signetti and his boys turned it on, covered the number, and really put the boots to Michigan State for the remainder of this game.
Yeah, Curtis Rohr came back off injury. I guess he needed the first quarter to work the rust off because they scored 47 unanswered in 3 quarters of football. Yeah, they're just a wagon right now, man. We talked about it at the Open, talking about the rankings. If I'm Ohio State, like both of these teams, honestly, kind of have a look ahead spot this weekend, and that is shaping up to be maybe the biggest game of the year going into Ohio State. Like,
could you have imagined on August 15th, looking ahead to this season, that Indiana, Ohio State might be the biggest game in the Big Ten this year?
No, because everybody was locked on.
We were locked on October 12th.
Yeah.
But now that game has happened and Indiana is where they are, like that game might be them playing for a chance to play Oregon in the Big 12 championship game. And it might be Ohio State playing for their lives to get to the Big Ten championship. Fucking wild.
To get to the playoff.
To get to the playoff too, right? Right.
Yeah. I don't, depending on how some of these other games leading up to that fall, like 2-loss Ohio State, you may be on the outside, brother.
Possible. Very possible. Oh, all right. Kansas State, Houston. And I thought Houston was going to play them tough. I didn't think Houston was going to beat them outright. Another double-digit dog gets an outright win here. Kansas State, this is much more about Kansas State. They were fucking awful in this game. Holy shit, they were bad.
Yep. This was a game where let me double check that real fast. Houston threw 12 passes and none of them touched the ground. That was pretty cool. Whenever that is happening in a game, I I oftentimes will notice that the opposing team, in this case Kansas State, finds themselves pushing a little more, being a little more aggressive than they might need to be on offense because they're seeing that the other team is firing on all cylinders and being just extremely effective in certain areas of the game, right? And so that's what led to Avery Johnson throwing 2 interceptions and really kind of costing K-State the game, right? I texted you during this game, but we both kind of knew that the cover was out of the question for K-State, but I was like, K-State's too good. They're not going to lose to a Houston team.
Yep.
But Avery Johnson threw those 2 picks. They never really got the running game going, which is what fuels Avery Johnson to be able to play as free and loose as he can and just be the uber talented freak athlete at quarterback that he is. And it just never happened. And then all of a sudden the game was over. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? wait just a jiffy now. Hold up. And the Houston Cougars, shout out Ryan, we'll see him tomorrow night, and I want to ask him. But like,
Yeah.
All of a sudden Houston is beating K-State.
Yeah. And don't look now, but the Buffs are kind of in the catbird seat in the Big 12. We're going to talk about them in a minute. They got a ranked matchup this week, but
yeah,
it's a bit of a shakeup. Houston beating Kansas State in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Shakes
Well,
up.
it goes back, and I know you'll remember this. Our preview show for the week or for the season, we talked about how the Big 12, bottom to top is the most competitive league.
Yep.
It simply is.
And it's playing out that way.
Yep.
Imagine that. We know what we're talking about.
A couple of ball knowers.
Okay. I'm going to say my piece, and I'm going to get out of the way. I had A&M because I thought the defense was going to disrupt the offense for South Carolina. It didn't happen. South Carolina handled the pass rush. South Carolina manhandled Texas A&M. Lenore Sellers looked very good. That defense was unbelievable. And that's all I got to say about that, because we've got a resident Gamecock in the house who's going to take it away.
Look, I've been here before, dude. I can't,
Yes, you fucking can.
So in I saved this stat specifically for this section because we already talked about Penn State, but I have a fun coaching stat I'd like to throw out there. Shane Beamer has beaten 3 top 10 teams in his tenure at the University of South Carolina. And in 14 more attempts to beat top 10 teams in the country, James Franklin has the exact same number of wins against top 10 teams as does Shane Beamer. So that's cool. That's fun. I don't know if you know this, a lot of things have been happening this week in our country. Mostly college basketball related, college football playoff, things like that. Jaden Daniels wins another game over the weekend. It's fine. So I've been on Twitter a lot, and one of my all season long really, but mostly this week, one of my favorite things is to just see college football recruiting Twitter, and it's like, oh man, South Carolina gets another commit. Oh man, this guy's narrowed down his top 4 teams. One of them is South Carolina. Oh my God, Shane Beamer, he's electric. Oh man, we have the best atmosphere in college football. And it's like, yeah, these are things that if anybody would bother to tune in and listen to me, I have been telling you all for going on 11 weeks now that the University of South Carolina is one of the 15 best teams in the country, and we have the most electric home atmosphere at night games. It just, you can go and look for it yourself. I've been to multiple college football games where during TV timeouts, they bring out the swim team, they bring out this team, they bring out alumni, whatever. This was homecoming weekend for the University of South Carolina. And you know what they did during TV timeouts in the home games? They played a fucking light show and screamed USC at the top of the lungs while Sandstorm was playing. And that place was fucking on fire the entire night. And they also stormed the field and wrecked all of the hedges that we have along the end zones. But that's fine because University of South Carolina has an entire farm where they grow nothing but hedges, so they just replace them before our next home game. But yeah, shout out to the offensive line at the University of South Carolina. Much maligned. I sat in this exact chair 7 days ago and told you how bad our offensive line was. I said it was probably the worst in the entire SEC. Those boys to borrow a hockey phrase, they stood on their head. They absolutely stood on their head. They took the fight to that vaunted Texas A&M defensive line. And they said, hey, buddy, this is our house. We're going to own the line of scrimmage. And that's exactly what they did. Now, full disclosure, Le'Veon Moss, the number one running back for Texas A&M, is now out for the year. I'm pretty sure it's an ACL. It looked pretty bad. He got taken down on the sideline. Wasn't a dirty play. It was just a football play. It happens. Stuff like that happens. You got to live to fight another day. I'd like to switch to the other side of the ball now and talk about a young gentleman, a young, hot, fit boy, if you will, who's very near and dear to my heart. His name is Dylan Stewart. He is a true freshman. And if you go on X, as your dad so aptly points it out, it's no longer Twitter. If you go on X,
it's Die Hard.
Yeah, X.com, the everything app where it's all happening. There's an account called PFF College. They currently have the University of South Carolina defense ranked number 2 in the country overall. And if you look up true freshman defensive players, they currently have Dylan Stewart as the number 1 true freshman defensive player in the country. They also, I believe he's number 3 ranked edge player in the country. Not true freshman. Any class.
All together.
All classes. In this game Saturday night, he had 9 pressures, Gary. 9 pressures and a sack. Like that from a true freshman. This kid is 18 years old, maybe 19. I don't know when his birthday is. He's a true freshman and an absolute freak. And if nobody in the state of South Carolina has offered him an NIL deal, here's my salary. Take it, bud. Stick around. I don't make that much money, but whatever you want, I will fucking pay for it. Like, whatever it takes to keep that kid in the house, because he is a program changer. He is Jadeveon Clowney all over again, but a better pass rusher than was Clowney.
I tried to explain it to people this weekend. Like, so I have a fantasy football group chat, and one of the guys mentioned Dylan Stewart in the fantasy football group chat, and they were like, yeah, he's kind of nuts, like yada yada yada, and they were like not doing him enough service. Right? I was like, listen, guys.
Put me in that chat. I got it.
Right, exactly. I was like, listen, he's Clowney with a motor. He's like what Clowney wishes he could be. He is like if TJ Watt and Myles Garrett had a baby and he wasn't mature yet. Yep. Like that's what Dylan Stewart is right now. And I tried to use as much hyperbole as possible, and I still think I didn't do him enough.
Yeah, I mean that kid is a freak, and obviously Kyle Kennard, who's as of this morning,
he's 6'6", 248, and he just started puberty.
Yeah,
like, Jesus Christ, he is such a freak fucking human being.
It's insane, dude. It's insane. He has 5.5 sacks in the year. Kyle Kennard, the bookend on the other side, has I believe he's 8.5. He's 4th in the country. I mean, and that's not even talking about the defensive tackles we have in there. Right. TJ Sanders, Tonka Hemingway. Like, those are just the starters. They roll like 6 or 7 deep on that defensive line, and it's insane. I mean, Nick Ebenwari leads the country in interception return for touchdown. He has 4 interceptions on the season, which is good for, I think, 6th in the nation. Judge Collier is incredible on the other side. Bakari Swain, like the defense is absolutely star-studded. It's unbelievable. Carolina is a top 15 team in the country, and you said it yourself, Gary. You are big on the eye test. I promise you cannot watch 15 teams in this country and tell me that they're better than South Carolina. You cannot do it.
Agreed.
But we're not ranked, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on there. Ugh. Clemson, Louisville, and Clemson comes crashing to earth. We did talk about this last week. Louisville is scrappy. They're going to play you tough. I know it's a good weekend when you beat a top 10 team and them clowns up in Clemson take an L.
You see this big smile on my face? And I got to watch Cooper Flag play this week.
The triple threat.
It's a good time to be me.
Kentucky, Tennessee. Tennessee ends up holding on for the win. Kentucky played them tight. I believe this ended up a 10-point gap at the end of the game. Is Tennessee a playoff team? I'm going to put you on the spot. Is Tennessee a playoff team?
Let me look at their schedule. Mississippi State at Georgia, UTEP at Vandy. I'm gonna say yes. They're a 2-loss playoff team.
So you got them losing to Georgia, and they'll win the rest.
Yeah. I
I
thought
agree with that.
Okay, good. So we're just two bald knowers agreeing on things. That's
I'm in
thing.
lockstep with you on that. I think they may drop the Georgia game. I think they win the other 3.
Yeah, the Georgia game probably gonna be a night game. It's on the road.
Tough environment.
It is a night game. It's the 7:30 ABC game.
Yep.
Also, quick shout out. Say your prayers tonight, boys and girls, for Ben Herbstreit. For those of y'all who do not know, you may be not locked in the way that Gary and I are. Ben Herbstreit is I believe he's 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, golden retriever that is Kirk Herbstreit's service dog that goes with him everywhere. He gets on-field pass. He's in the studio when they call games.
Yep.
He has cancer right now. It's going through chemotherapy treatments. It's a very sad story. So if you have pets out there, hug them tonight.
Yeah.
Just appreciate them while they're around. We're thinking about Ben.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, so Tennessee, they probably lose that Georgia game because it's on the road between the hedges. It's going to be intense. That being said, I thought this was Nico's most impressive game of the year. Statistically speaking, right? He looked like the quarterback that they paid for as a senior in high school when they brought him in. If they get this level of play from Nico, they probably at least win a playoff game because Nico threw for almost 300 yards and Dylan Sampson ran for almost 150. Like if you get that kind of two-headed monster on the offensive side and pair that with the defense that's also really good there in Knoxville, if you can combine all of those together, they could go into Georgia and win that game because you specifically tonight have talked about how bad Carson Beck has been. And if you can rattle him early, he's going to turn the ball over. And then if you get Nico, who's playing out of his mind, Dylan Sampson running all over the place, you eliminate any turnovers and you can win that game.
It might be a 1-loss team.
It's possible. Don't come to South Carolina, though, I'll tell you that.
And we finished out the week with Smoo knocking off undefeated Pitt. Both of us were on the -7.5, and they nailed it. SMU is kind of the real deal in an ACC that's a bit topsy-turvy. FSU being down this year after their preseason ranking kind of changed the scope of the ACC. Miami's holding serve, but you're looking at, Pitt. Pitt was right there. Smooth's right there. Syracuse was there early in the year and it's fallen apart. But it's really it's kind of there for the taking for the next team that's going to play Miami in the ACC title game. And SMU says, okay, why not us?
Why not?
Why not?
They have the money to pay off the committee if they want to.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And they don't have to worry about the death penalty anymore.
Exactly. What SMU should do, here's what SMU needs to do. They need to win out the rest of their games, go to the ACC championship game, have one of their big boosters go to Cam Ward and be like, here's the biggest check you've ever seen. Don't play in the championship game.
Just stub your toe.
Yeah. Just rest it for the playoff.
We'll see you in the playoff.
Yep. I think a 1-loss Miami gets in.
Yeah.
I don't know if a 1-loss SMU gets in.
I don't know if a 2-loss ACC team does.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, they'd be SMU's undefeated. No. They have 1 loss. You're right. They lost to BYU early in the year by 3. Yep. That's right. Yep. Yeah. So a 2-loss team probably doesn't get it.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
But we don't know that because nobody knows what the committee is thinking.
No, we don't. Actually, that's very true. That's very true. Let's talk off the board. You got anything off the board from this past weekend?
Oh, man. Yeah, let me find one for you. I'm sure there's one I can pull up that was enjoyable to watch. We talked about how actually, yeah, I have the one right here. As soon as I saw it, I knew it. So we talked last week how the ranked games were going to be the key matchups of the weekend and how those were probably going to be the most enjoyable games. They were the most enjoyable games, but there is a game that drew a lot of attention from true college football sickos. We talked earlier in the year, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia. So last year when Diego Pavia was the quarterback in New Mexico State, he took those Lobos, or the New Mexico State Lobos, yeah, and they went into Auburn and won on the Plains. He now has taken Vanderbilt into Auburn and won on the Plains. And there's a theme of commonality here. The coach that was at Auburn last year is the same coach that was here this year, and that is Hugh Freeze. Well, if we go back 2 college football seasons ago, when Diego Pavia was at New Mexico State, they played a Liberty team. The third leg in the barstool here is that Hugh Freeze was also the coach at Liberty when Diego Pavia beat them at New Mexico State. So not only has Diego Pavia won the Iron Bowl by beating Alabama and Auburn, he has now beaten Auburn 2 years in a row, and he has beaten Hugh Freeze 3 years in a row at 2 different schools, at 4 different schools combined.
Yeah. New Mexico State, the Aggies.
New
Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get those.
But yeah, I mean, shit. Diego Pavia fucking owns the Egg Bowl or the Iron Bowl and owns Hugh Freeze. I mean, you can't own a guy more than that for sure.
Also, one more off the board, real quick. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
Who do you think is the second leading rusher in the nation this year?
Ooh.
He plays for a team that we talked about extensively last season.
Really?
Yeah, extensively. He has 1,279 yards and 19 touchdowns. Is averaging 7.5 yards a carry.
Oh, that's let's see.
Their colors are black and yellow.
I was going to say, is it Texas? No.
Nope.
Black. Nope. Oh, Iowa?
Yes, Caleb Johnson.
Oh, you know what? Yep. He was the headline before last week's game.
Yep.
The second leading rusher in the country, though?
Second leading rusher in the country.
On the scene, by the way. Like, not really on the radar to start the year.
No, not really. But Iowa's now an over team. They scored 42 points again.
Suddenly they got fucking offense.
Yeah. They scored 42 points this weekend. Johnson went for 135 and 3 touchdowns.
Ah, yeah. Very nice.
Diego Pavia, yes. Hugh Freeze's daddy.
All right, well, let's shift gears, man. Let's jump into week 11. We got some interesting matchups, especially coming off of the college football playoff first rankings of the year. Purdue heads into the Horseshoe to take on Ohio State. They're getting 38 points. I know my thinking is 38 is just too many. Conference game. Purdue is not as bad as I think this number would indicate. I think they've been playing kind of like tough ball. They've been playing hard for their coach. 38 is just too many, right?
Yeah, I concur. I mentioned it a minute ago. Look ahead spot for Ohio State.
Yep.
At 38 is so many points.
So many.
That's so many points.
Yeah, for sure. I hit the wrong one. That's last week. Miami, Georgia Tech, Miami minus 11. I know it's on the road. This doesn't feel like enough. Miami, I think, is going to beat up this defense for Georgia Tech. I would probably lay this up to like 20 in the hook. I think this is going to be a 3-touchdown game, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're not sure, once again, who's playing quarterback for Georgia Tech here. I've been to Bobby Dodd Stadium. It doesn't get incredibly loud, especially for like an afternoon game. I don't imagine, especially after we heaped praise on Miami, I don't imagine their offense will come in and their defense will be flustered and their offense will stall. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, for sure. This line makes me think that there's some rumblings that Haynes might play this week, but I don't know. I mean, if he was announced out, I would have expected this line to be closer to like 18.5.
For sure.
Florida, Texas. I'm going to take the points only because I think it's going to be a 21-point game and I'm going to win by the hook. I know I'm going to be sweating this one out. I don't trust Quinn Ewers right now. I just don't. In consecutive weeks, he's been a bit of a struggle. They benched him at one point against Georgia. They probably should have lost the game against Vanderbilt, if we're being honest with ourselves. A couple of the mistakes that Vanderbilt had, the uncharacteristic mistakes. I just don't trust Ewers right now to win a game by more than 21. I think I might be sweating this though because I think Texas is that much better than Florida. But I give me 21 in the hook.
Sure, I get it. As someone who lost a game on Friday night by the hook, just an all-time bad beat from, honestly, hand up, accountability. Why was I gambling on UConn football? Might need to look in the mirror on that one.
Listen, we talk about lines on the show. We gotta live up to the D-Gen bill.
Just kick the field goal, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, what a mess.
Yeah, worst beat of the year for me, for sure.
It was on SVP, by the way, on bad beats.
Oh, thank God.
You weren't alone. You weren't.
Thank God. Yeah. No, Texas.
It always makes me feel just a little bit better when it's on SVP, and I'm like, I fucking can't believe I lost that. And then SVP's like, what the fuck? And yep, I agree.
Yep. SVP, by the way, sneaky D-Gen.
Oh, yeah.
Sneaky D-Gen.
He's betting on wild shit.
Yeah. Texas. I don't know who's playing quarterback. I think it's the Yale kid for Florida. I know that we spoke relatively highly of this Florida team and how hard they play. I don't think it's going to matter ultimately. I get the hesitation of betting on Quinn Ewers. I understand it. I just think they're that much better. I really do. Give me like 23 points in this game.
We're both going to be sweating then.
Yeah.
I like it. A little 30-7 action or something.
Yeah.
Georgia, Ole Miss. I waffled on this, and I'm gonna be honest with the betting public out there. If you're watching, I'm not fucking wagering this line.
Nope.
Because I do think that Ole Miss can beat Georgia in Oxford. I do think that Carson Beck can give one away here against a sneaky good, not great Ole Miss defense. And I think Jackson Dart and company are going to be able to move the ball against Georgia. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep the magic going without Trey Harris, and I'm not confident that they're going to be able to pull this out. I also 2.5 always feels like I'm picking a money line essentially, right? So like, give me Georgia winning this, and maybe they'll only win by 3, but I'm gonna take that with the 2.5 and hope I don't get beat by a kicker.
Yeah, for real. I waffled as well. I really wanted to take Ole Miss. I really, really wanted to take Ole Miss watching what they did last week after that game, or watching what they did last week in that game. But we also watched Texas crush Michigan, and then Texas lost at home to this Georgia team, right? We know what Lane Kiffin does in big moments. We know he's in that James Franklin territory of doesn't win the big ones, right? I worry about this Ole Miss team in a big time spot like this. For that reason, I'm going with Georgia.
Now, I'm going to caveat this slightly that if I find out Saturday morning that Trey Harris is playing, I might wager Ole Miss if you're going to give me any points.
Yeah, so, true.
Just full disclosure for the betting public out there.
True.
If Saturday morning you find out that Trey Harris is going to play this game, I might have a ticket on Ole Miss if I can still get any points. I'm not sure they get points if Trey Harris. This might be a pick'em line if Trey Harris plays at home.
Does it? If I told you that Georgia was 2-6 against the spread this year, does that change your pick?
I have a hard time taking the points under 3 if I don't think they're going to win outright. It's just like field goals it's a weird thing for me. I know that field goals are just a weird thing for me. Anything under 3, if I don't think they're going to win the game, I typically will go the other way. It has cost me in the past where a game gets decided by 1 or 2 points. It's just a weird thing for me to wrap my head around. I don't know why. It's probably why I'm building casinos in Vegas for them, but no, probably not, because I think Georgia's going to win and give me a field goal win. That's probably my stance.
Yeah.
Even though they're 2-6 against the spread. But I do reserve the right to wager differently if Trey Harris plays.
100%. 100%.
And come back here next Wednesday and apologize for losing this one. Let's see. Michigan, Indiana, in Signetti we trust. Michigan just not doing it this year. Feels like a very lost year. They got a national championship though, so hopefully for you Wolverine fans out there, you're still just riding that high and not wondering what's going on this year. As I mentioned previously, it does look like they've got a decent quarterback crop coming in, so maybe next year they'll have something going if they're willing to start a true freshman. But give me Indiana, who is fucking rolling.
Yep, I agree. Signetti, we believe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Iowa State, Kansas. Iowa State with another interesting number. -3. I just don't know that Kansas can keep with them. I think they're going to be able to run the ball on them and control the clock, even though it's on the road.
Yeah, same. I don't trust Kansas's defense to be able to stop the run game of Iowa State. And I think that Iowa State is looking to bounce back and make a statement to the committee that they're a playoff-worthy team.
Yep, for sure. A little motivation. Clemson, Vatek, we're on the same side. Are you going money line?
Oh, man. Why did you ask me that?
Because it's Clemson, man.
I know. Boy.
It's not a night game.
No. Make it like a field goal.
Sure.
Okay. Make it 3.
Yeah, I'll take all those 6.5.
Sure. This is really just a bet on which Virginia Tech team shows up. We've seen really good Virginia Tech, and we've seen really bad Virginia Tech. And I'm counting on them to play up to the level of competition and give Clemson a game here.
Like they did against Miami.
Yes.
I like it. Same thought process. Army, North Texas. This line feels weird. I know it's on the road. I know we just watched Army struggle a bit with Air Force. I think they're going to win comfortably in this game. I know it's a conference game and whatnot, but I don't know a ton about North Texas, full disclosure.
I got you.
I love it. Beautiful.
Chandler Morris, quarterback for North Texas, 4th leading passer in the country. Pair that with, have it pulled up here. Pair that with their leading rusher has 3 fewer rushing attempts than their leading receiver has catches on the season. This is
they're going to toss it.
When you talk about
this is Hawaii with Cole Brennan.
This is the ultimate clash of styles.
Yeah, it is.
Like that's what this. I gave you the stats last week. 48 passing yards for Army in a game they won by 3 scores.
Yep.
They are now going against one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the country. Like this, it doesn't get more opposite than that.
Nope. For sure. Love it.
I'm on Army.
It'll be fun. I'm on Army.
Control the clock. Don't turn the ball over.
Buddy. All right, onward to your nemesis. Colorado against Texas Tech. I know we just watched Texas Tech upset Iowa State. Colorado's coming off a bye. I'm on Colorado. I'm starting to become a believer for 2 reasons. That defensive line is starting to take control, and they are willing now to run the ball more on offense. They are not force feeding and trying to chase a Heisman with Shedeur and or Travis Hunter. They are willing to turn around and put the ball into the running back's belly, which I think helps that offense a ton. So for those 2 reasons, I'm a believer in Colorado going forward. Give me Colorado by probably 6 in this game.
Awesome. I'm going to score a ton of points with Texas Tech. It's at home. You know I love laying points at home. You know I love it.
Yeah.
I'm sticking to my guns
with it.
I'm sticking to my guns, Gary.
Guns. I like it. We've got Maryland taking on Oregon up in Eugene. Oregon's laying 25. This could have been 35, and I probably would lay them. Maryland is fucking bad, relatively speaking, and Oregon is fucking good, relatively speaking. Give me that and Maryland traveling almost as far as any Big Ten team can travel, with the exception of Rutgers, in terms of like just kind of right to left travel.
Yep.
I think Maryland's actually a little bit farther because of the whatever. I'm not talking geography. But traveling 3 time zones, heading up to Eugene in a raucous environment against the best team in the country right now, I would lay the 35 if that's what the line was, but I'm definitely laying the 25.
Yeah, same. I honestly thought it was a little low.
I thought so too.
I don't. My assumption is that they think Maryland just comes in, runs the ball, and
Just slows the game down.
just plays keep away. And we do know historically this Oregon team is susceptible to the run.
Yes.
So they might run out of time to cover in the first half.
I like what you did there. Little curveball for the kids. Notre Dame, Florida State. This for me is much more about I don't trust Notre Dame's offense to run up the number.
Tennessee, or unless we're skipping one.
I skipped one. You're right. I saw the M
Mm-hmm.
right by it. Mm-hmm. Mississippi State, Tennessee. Mississippi State plus 24. I'm going to be straightforward with you. Okay. I waffled on this, and then you sent your picks, and I flipped mine. Because I had flipped it about 10 times from Tennessee to Mississippi State. Like, in my head, like, in the moment when I was making my pick, I was like, man, this number feels right.
Okay.
I think it's like a 20-point game. But I thought it could be like a 20 or 27-point game if Tennessee finds an extra touchdown. You made your pick. I stuck with Mississippi State. 24 feels like too much. They've been scrappy lately, too. They surprised us against a couple opponents here recently.
Well, I'm trying to find the game a couple of weeks ago. The Mississippi-Georgia game.
Georgia? Yeah.
I don't remember what the line. It was big. The line was
like
big.
26.5, 28.5.
Yeah, regardless. So my
big.
Who do you think?
I've got the spreadsheet open. I can find it for you right now.
Okay, I was scrolling back through my screenshots. Do you think that Tennessee is a better football team than Georgia?
Oh, I think they're fairly even. Maybe Georgia's a little better.
Okay. Similar line.
Yep.
The Mississippi State game. Why can Mississippi State not cover against Tennessee if they covered against Georgia?
You're right. 34.
34.
Okay. And they covered that easily too.
Yeah. That was like
I'm with you. I agree. I think Mississippi State's been scrappy the last couple of weeks. I'm in. Yeah.
That's my thought process. Is they did against Georgia, who I think is a better team than is Tennessee. Why could they not cover against Tennessee?
Yep. Agreed.
And it's a lot of points.
It is a lot of points. Florida State, Notre Dame now. We're on opposite sides on this one. And this is much more about Notre Dame's offense. I don't know if they're going to be able to explode against Florida State's defense. Maybe Florida State's offense turns the ball over a bunch. They've been very conservative recently on offense, so I don't know if they're going to take a lot of chances. I just think 26.5 is too much. That's where I'm at.
So Florida State this year is allowing on average 27 points a game. Notre Dame is allowing on average 12 points a game.
You got them getting shut out?
I very easily could see Florida State not scoring in this game. So
if that happens, I'm going to lose this line because Notre Dame's going to score like 27 or 30, maybe 34. I need a touchdown out of Florida State.
Yeah. Yep. You need someone to put it on the ground. You need a Notre Dame player to put it on the ground.
Yep.
That's what you need.
I agree. If they get shut out, I'm losing this line for sure. Alabama, LSU. I'm on Alabama -3. I know the game's in Baton Rouge. I know it's a nutty nighttime scene there. Talk to me about why you're on LSU +3. Do you have them money line, or do you think it's just going to be that tight of a game?
Oh man, Gary, you always ask me such difficult questions, dude.
That's what I'm here for.
I know. LSU home, coming off of a bye, off of a loss. I don't think that I would play the money line here. I would confidently play if you're giving me 3.5. Is that what we came to? No, 3.
3.
If you gave me 3 points at home
You're gonna take
in
them.
Death Valley, I'm gonna take them. I
Okay.
love laying points at home. I love even more getting points at home at night. It's like, now I do have that preseason ticket for Alabama to win the SEC. So I would love
28-27.
Yes. Yes. An Alabama 2-point win, 1-point win.
Yeah.
Give me overtime, like double
Go to the
overtime
2
where we
points.
have to. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I
like
want.
It. I like it. I like it. That way you're locked in.
Yes.
Locked
Please
in.
give me that.
Yeah. I like it. Alabama coming off a 34-0 drubbing on the road, though.
Well, we're about to talk about that team.
Yes, we are. Onward to Oklahoma, or heading to Columbia, the other Columbia, the not so Columbia, to take on the Mizzou Tigers. Without Brady Cook, they are a very, very different team. Oklahoma played Maine last week and put up a bunch of points.
Yep.
They are getting healthy, though. Like, that's the one thing about Oklahoma right now is they are starting to get healthy on offense. We talked about it at one point. They had 5 wide receivers. They're top 5, too. Not just, like, 5 random dudes that play wide receiver. They're top 5 wide receivers. They're getting healthy. Jackson Arnold, albeit against an inferior opponent, may have built some momentum last week. I don't know. It's fucking Maine. But give me Oklahoma because Mizzou's a very different team without Brady Cook.
I agree. Oklahoma was a highly touted team coming into the year. Jackson Arnold, 5-star recruit, big time kid. Jackson Arnold is the reason Dylan Gabriel
left.
is in Eugene. You mentioned it. The receivers coming back, their offensive line getting healthier. Their defense was never bad. Their defense was not a problem in Oklahoma, despite what some of their final scores may have said, specifically the Texas game. The defense was not a problem.
Turnovers and failed drives.
Yes. Not being able to do anything on offense.
Right.
On the other side, no Brady Cook.
Yeah.
I guess Drew Pine is playing. I don't know that we're going to know until Saturday who's actually playing.
Drew Pine's going to take snaps.
Yeah. Yeah. That team is not good when Brady Cook does not play. No. So, yeah, give me Oklahoma. Eli Drinkwitz, heck of a coach. Super fun. But I don't know that he's able to coach these guys up to the point of overcoming that type of injury. Yeah, Drew Pine. Yeah.
He's so bad.
It's true.
So bad.
Yeah.
Oh, it's painful to watch when he plays. Penn State, Washington, in Happy Valley, coming off the bad loss to Ohio State. The most important piece of this line is the fact that Washington is not ranked in the top 10 nor the top 5. Penn State at home against a struggling Washington team. I'll lay the 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, bounce back spot. Tyler Warren's going to have 35 touches.
He fucking better. They better figure out how to just give him the ball all the time.
Yeah. Also, I should have hand up accountability once again. I should have warned you. This is a whiteout game for Penn State.
Yeah.
So maybe take Washington.
Yeah, maybe. Oh,
yeah.
I might be rethinking my fucking pick by Saturday morning.
Yeah, right.
Boise, Nevada. Boise minus 24. Give me Genty going nuts this weekend. I would take the over on his yards up to like about 310 maybe. Nevada's not good, and Boise's going to run all over him. The only thing with that Ashton Genty line, I half joke. They seem to have found a little bit of a rhythm in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that eats a little bit into his numbers, but they're going to give him the ball plenty, and he's going to beat this defense up.
Yeah, certainly. This is Ashton Jetty making a push for the Heisman season.
Yep.
That's the stretch of games we have come into, because if I remember correctly, and I'm going to pull it up to make sure that I do. Yeah, they've got some.
They've got the underbelly of their schedule.
They've got some less than talented defenses approaching.
Yeah, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, and then they finish with Oregon State.
Yeah. San Jose State, who, by the way, I gotta pull up the kid's name. I think his name is Nash. Yeah, Nick Nash.
Yep.
Kid, wide receiver, Nick Nash, stud.
Yeah.
80 catches on the season.
Yeah.
Almost 1,000 yards, 5 yards shy of 1,000, 12 touchdowns.
You know what the craziest part of that entire existence is? You know who their coach is?
Not off the top of my head. I should.
Niumatalolo.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe with the triple option is now coaching San Jose State, who runs an air raid offense.
Yep, that's right. Yep. You've been talking about him all year.
Yeah.
Mostly because of Navy, but yeah, you've been talking about him.
Yep. He's coaching a very different offense in San Jose State.
Yep. Hey, that sunshine just does something to you, you know?
It does. You don't have the dreary rain of Annapolis anymore.
Oh, God. Maryland. Gross.
That fucking state. Pitt, Virginia. Pitt's laying 7.5 at home. They better cover this line. Coming off a loss to SMU, it better be a bounce back window for them. They still have hopes to play in the ACC championship game. This is a game that they need to win by a bunch, especially if they think as a one-loss ACC team they could squeak in on that 12 line. I don't think it's going to happen. A one-loss non-champion ACC team is going to be tough to get into the playoff. But give me Pitt bouncing back here against a bad but played a couple of good games this year Virginia team.
Yeah, I agree. Virginia's not great. Pitt definitely a better team. So coming off a loss, I love betting teams coming off of losses.
Yeah,
just want to put that out there. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
So give me them being Pitt. I would lay the 7.5.
I like the rubber band effect.
Yep.
BYU, Utah. We're on opposite sides. I'm not picking Utah to win this game. All right. I'm going to put that out there. I think this is going to be one of those ugly Utah BYU slugfest because they both play similar styles of football type of games. Give me a really strange score. I'm going to go 16-15. I just think it's going to be one of those games where you're going to see the kickers on the field a lot. You're going to see defenses, and you're going to see a lot of running the ball because both teams are looking to control the clock and play defense, especially since Utah is not playing with Cam Rising. I think that we're going to see both teams really slow this fucking thing down and just try to make it muddy in a rivalry game there in the state of Utah.
Gary, what do we always say about Utah at night?
Yeah, and nobody
goes there.
Points. You laid the points.
I know. I did. Gary, I know I did. I know that I picked BYU to win this game by 5 points. I don't feel good about it. I don't.
Fair.
I do not feel good about it because, like you and I always say, nobody goes into Utah and wins at night.
Nope. Salt Lake City's crazy at night.
Except for this week, because BYU is going to go in and they're going to win this game by probably 5 points. This could be like
a 22-17.
I was just say 17-12.
12.
Yeah,
give me a weird score no matter what.
Yeah. I don't know how Utah scores. I don't. Defense, I guess,
that's
would be.
Florida. I figured 5 field goals, and BYU is going to get a touchdown and 3 field goals.
Yeah, like it. You nailed it. I agree 100%. This is going to be an ugly game.
Yeah.
Probably a strange score.
Yep.
Or your other option is BYU blows the doors off of Utah because it's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make a push for a high seed. They're going for that 4 seed.
Yep.
They might be going for the 3 seed if Miami
dumps one. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Certainly could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We finish out the week with surprise or fucking prize. The team without a conference.
We're back, baby. We're back. We're back.
Adding teams next year, and they got a team in the top 25 this year. The Washington State Cougs.
Let's go.
Are number 21 in the nation, taking on Utah State, who probably has no business playing on the same field as most Division I schools. Washington State's laying 20.5. I think this could get real fucking ugly because Utah State is so bad.
Yeah.
I'm laying the 20.5, and I feel real comfortable that we're cashing a ticket late at night, Pac-12 after dark. If you really still want to call it the Pac-12.
Yes. Or the Tupac. Those are the only
Tupac.
two.
I like that better. The Tupac after dark.
The only acceptable references to that conference.
Yes.
They still wear the Pac-12 logo though, which is awesome. I love it.
And they're only going to have 8 teams next year, I believe is the count right now.
6, I think. Right?
Is it 6 or are they adding 6? Is it 6?
Think,
it might be 6. You might be
I think
right.
It's going to be 6 because you have to have 8 to get like auto bids to the NCAA tournament.
And they still don't qualify. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which we're gonna have to have like a season season roundup show to right now because I love what we're doing. We're locked into the games. There are some auxiliary stories
right now.
Yeah, there are things happening in the sport that we don't hit on, because we do this once a week and we want to get to people like the game analysis, right?
Yeah.
There's some things we can rehash when the season ends, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love this game because the over-under is 69.5.
Giggity.
Utah State is giving up 41.5 points a game this year on average. They are allowing 41.5 points a game. They're allowing 498 yards of offense per game. Our good friend BK will certainly appreciate this because I'm going to pull this guy's name up to make sure I get it correct. Oh, he's not on here. My apologies. Excuse me. I was thinking of someone else. Oh, no, he is. There is a tight end who plays for Washington State University, and his name is Andre Dollar.
Honorary Dollarback.
Yes, honorary Dollarback player, Andre Dollar. And I knew this going into the year, and I've known about BK's Dollarback system, but I've kind of been holding off on it, hoping for something like this to occur so that we could talk about it on the show. I don't know that he's in here right now, but I will be letting him know that Andre Dollar, there is a dollar player in college football this year.
Yep, absolutely.
Lay the points. Let's go Cougs.
Lay them.
Shout out Mike Leach.
Oh, yeah. R.I.P. Legend. All right, buddy. We have concluded our top 25 slate. What do you got for me off the board?
So there's a fun new player in our lives in college football, and his name is CJ Bailey, and he plays quarterback for North Carolina State. This is a team that was ranked at the beginning of the year.
I know.
And then kind of faltered. Grayson McCall got hurt. Yep. Exactly. He got hurt. So they brought in this kid. He's a true freshman, CJ Bailey. He is absolutely electric. He's 6'6", 190 pounds. So he's a string bean running around out there. Yeah, but he's super athletic, takes a lot of sacks, but can throw the ball a mile, has a lot of velocity in that arm, and it's just a super electric player. So he's very fun to watch. And this weekend, They're playing
Duke.
Yeah, sorry, there was the TV logo was there. They're playing Duke, who I convinced you that Duke is good yet? Do you need to see it for one more week?
You've done your job.
Okay, thank you. Malik Murphy, the Texas transfer, comes in. Manny Diaz got that program heading in the right direction. But CJ Bailey is a really, really fun quarterback who's playing pretty good ball right now as a freshman at North Carolina State. So that is just kind of something to keep your eye on for this weekend if you want to go off the board and kind of check something out. They're playing on ACC Network. I believe that's like a 4:00 game to 3:30. So nice kind of sandwich between big games this weekend. But yeah, CJ Bailey, he's my off the board kind of star this weekend. North Carolina State, still like a decent team. They just got a lot of injuries early in the year and kind of lost track of the season early on.
Yeah, wheels fell off early. Just never really got it going with Grayson McCall, the 47th year senior.
Can't wait to watch.
Pretty sure he's got 3 graduate degrees at this point.
Well, he went to Coastal, so relax.
That's fair.
Takes 5 years to graduate from there, anyways.
Yeah. In underwater basket weaving.
Well, yeah. It's at the beach. Like, what else are you gonna do?
Right. What else are you gonna do? Absolutely. All right, bud. Well, hey, good show. We got a pretty good slate this weekend. We got our first CFP top 25. We get to see how much it swings next week, depending on these outcomes and kind of whether we can start to hone in on what the committee's looking at. We also need a bounce back week. We had a lot of red last week. Let's get some more green this week. Get some winners. Start cashing tickets.
Yep.
But for Bentley,
last one. Sorry, it's my weekly Tulane update.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're now 7-2 against the spread. They are playing at home this weekend against Temple. They're 26.5-point favorites. The line, the over/under is only 49.5. So that tells me
them out.
Yeah, that tells me they expect a lot of points from Tulane and not a lot of points from Temple.
Temple's a mess, though. So
yes,
it does make sense. Temple is a mess, but
yeah, Matt Rule not walking through that door.
It's always interesting to see those lines because that means like you said, a lot of points from one team and the other team's gonna not sniff the end zone.
Yep.
But, all right. Well, hey, for Bentley and everybody else here at Backyard Sports, this has been another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk. Thank you for those participating in the chat. We are